Hello everybody, welcome to week 2 of our course Introduction to the Achaemenids. Last week we introduced the introduction, as fun as it sounds, and we had an overview of the Achaemenid dynasty as a whole. For this week we will start learning names and places and historical events, for you are going to witness the genesis of one of the biggest empires in the history of the ancient world, and we will do so through the lives of the three great personalities of ancient history. Kurush Bozorg, Cyrus II, or Cyrus the Great, will be the opening part. He will be followed by Darius Bozorg, Darius I, also called the Great. And this one here, hear me out, this one is the real reason we are speaking about the Achaemenids today. Trust me, I will elaborate later, but put a pin on that thought. Finally, we will know Hushayarsha, Xerxes I, a king that has much more to offer than just the Greco-Persian conflict. These three people were fundamental for the genesis and the establishment of what we study today as the Achaemenid dynasty. And to get the best picture possible, we need to travel back in time, even before Cyrus the Great himself. What was the situation before anything remotely Achaemenid related occurred? Always remember the importance of context. We are going to be using that one a lot. We are clicking the rewind button to more or less 500 years before Cyrus. This is a time when the tribe of the Parsa migrated to the Iranian plateau. These were Indo-Iranian people with an Iranian language that, you guessed it, now we call Old Persian. What made them move from the east is something a bit unclear still, but what we can confirm is that the migratory process was peaceful. In the sources written by the Assyrians and the Babylonians, we find two tribes. There were the Parsua, located in the western Zagros, and then the Parsumash, which occupied the southern kingdom of Anshan and coined the name of the province, Parsa. Will become Fars later on, and do you know why? Because Arabic language does not have the letter P, and then everything starting with P was substituted by F or B. For real, Parsa is Fars and Pasargadae is Bazargad. Allow me to introduce you to the kingdom of Anshan. They were neighbors of the Elamites, the Medians, who were another Iranian tribe, and other tribes that will be important later on. Now, because this is an introductory course and because our time is limited, we cannot entertain ourselves with a nuanced and detailed description, so we will flash forward a bit. Ta-da! Now we are at the time of Cyrus, son of Cambygia or Cambyses and great-grandson of Xisphis or Theispes. He belonged to the tribe of the Pasargadae, who named the later capital, and yes, I am aware that I am saying tribes quite a lot, because the bigger tribe, the Parsumash, was at the same time divided in smaller groups of people that were also tribes, clans, family, and ultimately groups of people. About Cyrus' early life, we know very little, and stories are contradictory as they can get. And most of them are retellings or can be traced back to ours truly, Herodotus. Xenophon gathered one of the best known tales among the Iranians, allegedly, and I will tell you both. First, Herodotus' version and then Xenophon's. But please bear in mind that both have a notorious amount of folklore and legend dressing in this historical salad. Right then, according to Herodotus, the king of Media, Astyages, had a daughter, Mandana, married to the king of Anshan. And before we move any further, a disclaimer to myself. I cannot, all the Yazatas are my witnesses, pronounce this name in English. It is absolutely impossible. Bear with my Spanish, born and raised tongue. I will keep calling him Astyages. So, Astyages has a premonitory dream in which he's told his grandson will overthrow him and become king. So, The king of Media had his daughter sent back to Media, and once baby Cyrus was born, he ordered that he be killed. However, the baby was placed in the caring hands of Mithridates, a shepherd that rose little Kurush. The secret was kept until Cyrus was 10, when his grandfather discovered the truth and sent him over to Parsa with his parents. When Cyrus became king of Anshan, a title that he will always use to refer to himself, he rebelled against his grandfather Astyages around 553 before Common Era, and of course he was victorious. This story, interestingly, resembles quite a lot the legend of Sargon of Akkad, who ruled during the 3rd millennium before Common Era. Is this important? Absolutely, because it's not that Herodotus was just copying a folk tale that was still present in the oral and written traditions. Rather, it shows how narrative can be a powerful tool for legitimacy, and in this case, we have a narrative formula that was ever present in the collective memory and that could resonate with all audiences. Even if it was an invention, giving accurate facts was not the intention of the Greek historian. What was important was the message, and that is that Cyrus was the legitimate ruler of Iran. Then we have Xenophon's version of Cyrus's younger years. He still starts with Cyrus already being a healthy 12-year-old, and there are no animosities nor premonitory dreams of Astyages' part. The boy is sent to Media to meet his grandfather, and the kid ends up staying for a while, learning all the customs of the Mada. Although his mother returns to Parsa, Cyrus stays to absorb as much as possible from the tribe of his grandfather. While doing so, apparently, he gained a solid number of companions that, surprise, will be at his side when the young king rebels, but not against Astyages, but against Cyaxares, Cyrus's uncle. What is remarkable about this story is the good relationship between Cyrus and Astyages, so different from the tale of Herodotus. I wish we had time for looking at these into detail, but we have to keep going. So Cyrus engages in a series of military conquests that end up creating a solid amount of land, considerably big. He occupies Parthia and Acarnania and possibly Armenia by 549 before Common Era. This was a relatively easy task since the provinces were components of the Kingdom of Media. And here we find yet another contradiction regarding the conquest of Babylonia and Elam regarding the timeline. Scholars agree that Elam was conquered before Babylonia, although this is how far as we will go for today. But 535 before Common Era, Cyrus held more power than any of his ancestors before him. There is one last detail about Cyrus that I'd like to discuss with you today. Well, actually there are two last details, and both are related to one of the most famous objects of ancient history, the Cyrus Cylinder. This is a round cuneiform written tablet currently at the British Museum that describes the conquest of Babylonia in October 539 before Common Era. You might have heard of this object before, but there is a lot of misinformation going around, so today we'll be clarifying some of that. This is a conquest cylinder, and this was a widespread tradition among the rulers of the Fertile Crescent. It shows the same propagandistic structure of the Assyrian and Babylonian kings, the restoration of temples, taking care of the gods, or the return of the exiles, which linked to the biblical tradition created great fame for Cyrus among the Jewish population. The cylinder is also a document of jurisprudence, of practical law, and it is a good example of legal and royal text during the time. However, this is something you must learn by heart. The Cyrus Cylinder is not the first declaration of human rights, and it never was. Cyrus did not invent human rights, although he showed a special care for his subjects and cultural aggruppations under his rule. This text is so important, but not for the reasons the internet wants you to believe it is. Allow me to debunk, since we are here, that there is a fake translation going around the internet quoted by Shirin Ebadi during her speech after accepting the Nobel Prize in the Nobel Peace Prize, actually, in 2003. The translation is a mess, but you will recognize it because instead of having the god Marduk, named as it was the Babylonian tradition where this object was produced, it says Ahura Mazda. Falsifications cause great damage to history, and this is one of the gravest cases I have encountered. I could spend half my time on this planet speaking of Cyrus, but now we need to move on to the man, the legend, the myth. Allow me to introduce the true reason we are speaking today about the Achaemenid dynasty, the creator of the Achaemenid dynasty as a concept, Darius the First, Darius the Great. Wow, I have made some statements here, have I not? Let me elaborate and to explain my reasoning behind these assertions. Darius, or Dara for shorter, is a key figure to comprehend the development of the Achaemenid dynasty. Note on this, I call him Dara because I love how it sounds, but you can call him Darius, of course. Without him, things would have looked completely different. This king, halfway between history and legend, truth and lie, not only constructed a solid government, but something more important, the concept of a unifying identity that defined what truly being Persian meant. But before learning about him, we need to super quickly review two other people, because how come we jump from Cyrus to Dara? Did Cyrus designate Dara as his successor? Well, not really, as Cyrus had two sons, Cambyses and Bardia. And to get to know Dara, we must speak about the deaths of the true successors to the throne of Iran. After Cyrus's death, Cambyses was crowned king in 530 before Common Era, but he died suddenly after a campaign in Egypt, and his brother Bardia occupied his place. He lasted 6 months on the throne until Dara got rid of him, causing a whole shebang, and put himself on the throne. Of course, Dara fabricated a story that made him look like the hero that saved the empire from an imposter named Gaumata that pretended to be Bardia. That person would have assassinated Cyrus's son and stole his identity. Lucky for everyone, Dara discovered the plot and saved the day. How convenient. This is the story we found in Herodotus' work, although he calls Bardias Merdis for some reason. Also, Dara made sure the whole world would know the story and commissioned the biggest inscription in Iran's ancient history, that on Mount Behistun. Disclaimer, the situation is much more complicated and I am oversimplifying this story due to time limitation. But I invite you to jump over the extra content for this week to learn in detail what happened. If I expand a bit more on this, I won't speak about anything else. So who was this Dara? How could he pull this off? Rewriting history and creating a completely new legitimating discourse that presented him as truly belonging in the throne. First, he was not of royal blood, although him and his family possessed great power and influence. His father was Bishtaspa, the satrap of Bactria and Persis. Dara became King Cambyses' personal spearman and took advantage of his position to gain powerful allies that would support them at the right time. What's impressive here is that Dara got rid of his opponents and rewrote history at will. Yes, he did. He rewrote even his own ancestry, connected his lineage to none other than Cyrus the Great via a common ancestor, Achaemenes, or Achaemenes, from the Median clan of Pasargadae. Let us learn something here, but Cyrus never called himself an Achaemenid. He kept on referring to himself as King of Anshan. But since Dara had to state they were both related, he ordered inscriptions to be made in the name of Cyrus. The famous inscription in Palace P at Pasargadae that says, "I, Cyrus the king, an Achaemenid," is dated 521 before Common Era. Cyrus was long gone. It was Dara. Dara controlled an empire as great as his ambitions. He secured his position in Egypt, and by 515 before Common Era, he controlled all the Indus Valley, from Gandhara to modern-day Karachi. He married Atosa and Artistone, two of Cyrus's daughters and other important women of the court, to secure a complex system of dynastic alliances. His constructed campaign had no precedent, and he expanded past Pasargadae, Sush, and Ecbatana, created the empire's capital, Persepolis. He renovated the tax system, minted a new coin, the Darik, constructed the precedent for the Suez Canal, and renovated the postal routes and system inherited from the Assyrians. And because of the greatness of his doing, Dara renamed his title and coined one of the best known terms in history, Shahanshah, the King of Kings. I hope that I stated my case and made you reconsider the figure of Dara as the true father of the Achaemenid dynasty. Cyrus was the genesis, absolutely, but it was Dariavush, the one that started the ball rolling and created everything that today we consider an identifying associative trait of the Achaemenids. Cyrus was an Achaemenid by marriage through Casamnana, but Dara was something else in more than one sense. But now it is time to jump onto our third king for the session, Khoshayarsha, Xerxes I. He was a son of Dara and Atosa, daughter of Cyrus, and a full Achaemenid, so to speak. Xerxes is a king best known for the Greco-Persian Wars during the 5th century before Common Era. But that is not what we will be focusing on for today's session. Sure, we will mention the military campaign on Greece, but since there is abundant information regarding the battles, although not always exempt from certain Orientalism, I'd rather you learn other things about Xerxes, because he was so much more than just a lost campaign against Greece. He was a multifaceted king and very worth knowing. Xerxes was born around 518 before Common Era. He was designated as the heir to the throne by his father over his elder brother, and that caused a bit of an argument between the siblings. However, Xerxes was not only the son of Atosa, a descendant of Cyrus, but also had been born while Dara was already king. So he ticked far more boxes than his brother in the legitimacy requirements. Xerxes spent his early years consolidating his power in revolting areas like Egypt and Babylon, and those must have been serious enough to make the king himself lead the army and participate in battle there. After, the campaign against Greece came. Perhaps you did not know this, but after opening the way for the Iranians in Thermopylae, the armies of Xerxes reached Athens and indeed destroyed it. Most of the Athenians had left the city at that point, and the battles of Salamis and Plataea followed. The latter meant the final defeat for the Iranians, who returned home, thus ending the Greco-Persian conflict. But if Xerxes should be known for one thing, it's because of his construction projects. He oversaw the completion of many projects unfinished by his father Dara, and not only in Persepolis, but also in the second capital of the empire, Susa. The Gate of All Nations, a signature, monumental gate from Persepolis, was his commission. He also built the Apadana, the Tachara, the Treasure, and many palaces, giving the city the look that we can appreciate now. While all the king's spiritual sentiment is unknown to us, Xerxes expressed his devotion to Ahura Mazda in multiple occasions, suggesting that religion was important for him as part of his kingship. However, our king did not meet a gracious end, for he was assassinated by Artabanus due to a conspiracy that intended, but not succeeded, to dethrone the Achaemenids and put Artabanus and his descendants on the throne of the King of Kings. And this is all we will be learning for today's session. Thank you for joining. Make sure to check the extra content for further information. Remember that should you have any questions, you can come to the weekly streams and make them in the live session, or you can join the discussion topic in the designated week on Google Classroom. Have yourselves a beautiful day. Bacha. Khodafez.